Before the days of the Umgadi in Mortal Kombat 1, Li Mei was an outworld warrior with a vendetta against the deadly alliance of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. Betrayal led to her soul being placed into one of the Dragon King's resurrected soldiers, and after being freed and trained by Bo' Rai Cho, joined the Forces of Light in their battle for the realms. Li Mei is one of the select few characters to be playable in all three of the 3D MK titles from the PlayStation 2 era, and that was the last we saw of her in-game for many years. And even though she had a brief appearance in the story of Mortal Kombat X, Li Mei would sit as a fondly remembered by fans character, however, always being on that wish list for MK fans around the world. Mortal Kombat 1 changed this as she is playable on the base roster, and while she didn't have the most memorable of special moves from the days of old, her design and gameplay has been retained in a way that stays faithful to what Li Mei was always known for. I'll admit, it's been a while since our last episode in the Competitive History series, and the release of MK1 has been the reason for that. However, we have seen more than enough Li Mei gameplay in this game that I am satisfied in being able to make a video that covers the new game for the very first time. And who more fitting right now than a long-requested returning character where we can directly compare how Li Mei got to this point with her gameplay. So join me as we uncover the competitive history of Li Mei. We first saw Li Mei in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, one of the game's more acrobatic fighters and sporting some animations that really pushed that point across. Elaborate kicks, somewhat aerial moves. She was very stylish for the time. However, Li Mei in a competitive sense is not particularly strong in this one, and while she has some cool-looking moves, functionally she suffers from a lack of serious damage and general utility that a character needs to be considered good in this game. Deadly Alliance was the first true 3D MK, and at this point, you can tell that the team were trying something new here. Certain moves wouldn't lead to what you expect. A down 4 or a down 3, they wouldn't always lead to some kind of simple low kick for defensive purposes, for example. Sometimes it would be something totally different, which would leave a character lacking an important button that they require to play the meta with. It was a different time, and I suppose the formula hadn't been written yet. The first thing to mention about Li Mei is that her movement is actually really good. In her first hand-to-hand stance, every step that she takes involves a pretty significant, large step. That, when combined with step blocking, allows her to glide around the screen a lot more than most. This can help with repositioning, but her forward movement can be a bit lacking for actually a similar reason. Some of her steps forward have pretty slow startups, so trying to work your way in, bit by bit, sometimes felt a little bit sluggish. Special move-wise, Li Mei actually had her important moves from the first game. Some characters would take more than one title here to almost complete their moveset with specials, but Li Mei did not have that problem. Li Mei has a grounded launching flip kick. It advances forward, and it's safe. It's a great move to throw out as it leads to a combo, and it doesn't leave her too vulnerable if it's been blocked. Her now famous flip kick began here as well, and it's a grounded special. This is another advancing move, and although it isn't particularly important in this game, it does become a lot more usable in the future. A simple projectile exists, but that is all it is. It's a basic projectile and it's just kind of there, really. Finally, Forward 2 is a flurry of advancing punches, and although it looks kind of silly, I must admit, it's a good combo ender, and again, it is used more than in just Deadly Alliance. Attack-wise, Li Mei has a few notable buttons in this game that can really help her out, but it really is the lack of damage that hurts the most, and while some of the buttons sound good, in Deadly Alliance, she lacks effective range and the important mix-up element of mid versus low. Her first hand-to-hand has a mid-hitting launcher with good pushback. Launchers help damage in this game, but Li Mei combo branches mid-screen will end rather abruptly. She doesn't have those prolonged ones that can be a great punish on their own. And even then, when you launch somebody in Deadly Alliance, the gravity ends a combo quite quick. So if she's not in the corner, her launches, unfortunately, do not lead to much. Standing 3 is a mid that can be backdash cancelled, and it makes it a lot safer. Now that's one thing to point out about MEI. Backdash cancelling isn't too bad with this character. Backdash cancelling is a Deadly Alliance and Deception mechanic where you can backdash certain moves when they finish to shorten their recovery. And the ones that MEI can use this with actually see her moves go back to safety incredibly fast. It's just a shame that her buttons that can do this aren't really mix-up focused. 444 is a quick 3-hit where all 3 hits in this string can be backdash cancelled for the benefit I just mentioned, and it is used in some of her combos, especially against the wall. Her second hand-to-hand has more low options than her first, and it does have a mid-launcher combined with some low-hitting sweeps. But in terms of mix-up once again, that is kind of all she has. It doesn't hit very hard, and it requires you to land these a lot to make a serious difference. This hand-to-hand is the one that carries over into all 3 games, so you'd find yourself getting pretty used to it. But I personally believe that it is at its weakest in this game, mostly due to the issues that she has in general. Her weapon in this one was actually the Size, known for Melina at this point, but Melina wasn't in Deadly Alliance. This stance is single hit only. I think the most known thing that it has is the Impale mechanic, which does damage over time for the rest of the round if it hits. But also, MEI's combos aren't that great, and with all 3 stances that are quite tricky to use anyway, her combos using multiple style swaps to maximize damage become a lot easier if the Impale has landed. The Impale takes away weapon stance, so now you only have to swap between 2 stances and not 3. A severe weakness MEI has here are rather weak stance abilities. Impale is her weapon, which is okay because, as I said, it basically gets rid of the stance for just your hand-to-hand combos. But she has a Taunt and a Shove. But unlike other characters where the Shove can be really useful for mix-up or pushback, she doesn't really gain anything from her Shove. She just doesn't really have the utility, and this is kind of where MEI is in Deadly Alliance. She's quite flashy with her moves, and she has a fair few of them compared to some of the other characters, but mid-screen, she doesn't have the most amazing buttons, and her damage is lacking outside of the wall situation. Just generally underwhelming. It's a shame, but trust me, she gets a lot better after this. Deception brought back MEI, and let me tell you, she's a much better character here than she was in Deadly Alliance. Not just in gameplay, but there are some new visual effects to her moves. Her combos are wild. She's more fun to watch and a hell of a lot more fun to play. To many 3D MK heads, this is both her most memorable appearance and, some say, her strongest. Her second hand-to-hand in Deadly Alliance is back here, and it's her first one. And although some of the animations are the same, the function of them is quite different. Something I will be saying a lot in this bit is free throw, which, to remind you all, is something that Deception introduced. You can't block throws in this game, unlike Deadly Alliance, so any move with enough hit stun on it to meteor throw will work guaranteed, and MEI has quite a few of them. This stance gets a free throw in standing 2, back 4, her 3-3 even. Some of the attacks may need wall positioning due to pushback, but it is a dangerous tool for her to have. Many of these attacks in this stance that you'd use are safe as well, and that's a big deal in a game where a lot of things are generally unsafe on block, even with some characters having backdash cancelling. This stance has similar moves to Deadly Alliance, but they lead to better combos and better damage. Things like Standing 2 or 1-1-2 are both great when combined with her flip kick in a combo, but I'll cover that in a second. Her second hand-to-hand in Deception is a new stance, and this one contains a lot of safe launches or sweeps, with something like back 4 having basically 0 recovery to begin with. 1-1-2 stance change is a safe ender to a longer string, and you have a few sweeps or lows that you can mix up between her mids. It is the safety that makes the difference here, because without it, she'd just be a lot worse. Using these two hand-to-hands together for combos is a pretty big part of obtaining her damage. while it all seems to go back to her first hand-to-hand in some way. Her weapon changed in Deception, and here she gets a sword, something with better range than her Deadly Alliance weapon, and some notable buttons that again lead to a free throw. Her standing 2 is a free throw, and it's mid. Her back 3 has pushback on it, but if you're close enough, that's a free throw, again. This weapon isn't stylish, but it's good for that single hit, poke you down, fish for those free throws kind of game plan. And that game plan can be quite effective, because most opponents aren't going to look to combo break those attacks, which is in some ways free damage. Her specials are unchanged, but they have new effects, which is a nice touch. Deception is generally more polished than Deadly Alliance. However, here it is the combos that make MEI stand out to me. MEI's flip kick against a launched opponent leads to juggles that will rival the biggest combos and damage in most other MK games. Without flip kick, these combos wouldn't be possible. And although the gigantic damage you may find on a check combo video isn't doable by most of us, myself included, you're still getting at least half life for a single launcher. And fun fact, Shujinko can actually learn the exact same flip kick in Deception, and because of it, he too gets ginormous combos. This is the god special for big damage. MEI is a bit undecided on a firm tier list placement in Deception. Some people have said they think that she's weak, others have said that she's really good. It's kind of hard here because you have to think, who's discussing the character? Is it going to be an old forum thread where they're talking about online, or are they talking about now with more efficient ways to play the offline system? We have a character with good safety, huge damage, a character with mids and lows, but on a successful hit is taking at least half of your life, even more if you have the execution for it. Tons of ways to get free throws, 3 usable stances, which actually isn't common in 3D Mortal Kombat. I'm more on the side of those that think that MEI is dangerous in Deception. I can't see her being weak with the tools that she has in this game in particular, especially when you compare her to other weak characters. MEI seems to have more, in my opinion. MEI's 3D chapter came to a close in Armageddon, and no, I'm not saying that because she's the first to go in the intro cutscene. I'm saying that this was her final game for many years. But the question is, mechanically, did she actually change at all from Deception to now? This game was known a lot for characters keeping the previous stances and maybe adding a special or something, and that's it. But with her, she actually didn't really change move-wise, but with the air combat, she changed a fair amount. Her hand-to-hand is almost exactly the same, both from her buttons themselves and what they lead to. Combo tools are still simple combo tools, her lows are still lows. Some of her moves feel like they might have had a bit more recovery added to them, but it's hard to say. Her standing 2 definitely felt a bit slower on recovery, and the same could be said about her 1-1-2. But like I said, it's hard to say for sure. The game doesn't really offer many tools to find that stuff out. It just feels a bit slower on recovery. 1-1-2 into flip kick, for example, felt a lot harder mid-combo in Armageddon, but that could also be how juggles work. They work slightly differently in this game purely because of combo gravity. Her weapon is much of the same, the free throws, the safety, the range. It's all still there as well, and truthfully there isn't much to say about it. Her combo branch into weapon launcher is quite good, but it scales heavily in this game. But it is nice to have 2 stances that she can actually use, even though if you're taking the fight mid-screen, you may prefer the weapon due to range and the throw game. A big thing in Armageddon is the air combat, a new mechanic for the game at the time, and most characters could use it a fair amount. MEI could use it to obtain very impressive damage, however. Her weapon's air combat set was the one that allowed for easy infinites, and using even one cycle of this air loop into a flip kick and a combo ender allows MEI to obtain about 60% or more for a single launcher. This is actually really important because 3D MK combos are temperamental. They do not always work in seemingly the exact same situation. It can depend on what the stage is, what the character is, whether you're player 1 or player 2. There is more at play that can ruin combos than you might have ever expected in 3D Mortal Kombat, but launcher into air loop into finish, that is quite consistent, and it doesn't scale much either, giving Li Mei massive damage whenever she needs it. Li Mei isn't particularly different in Armageddon from Deception, outside of losing one of her hand-to-hand stances, but everyone from previous games lost a stance like that, and hers are more than usable. She's still relatively safe, something very important in this game as Armageddon removed backdash cancelling, so even more attacks are unsafe. Her damage is still fantastic. Free throws, great special moves, functionally. I think Li Mei is decent in this game, and I generally see her around that high to mid-tier section of a tier list, as rare as an Armageddon tier list might be. She isn't super broken or overwhelming, but she's fundamentally pretty sound, and trust me, there are definitely worse characters in this game. And now, where we are at the moment, Mortal Kombat 1. Li Mei has been confirmed as a playable character for a while now and has seen a huge amount of gameplay, as she was one of the characters added to the now finished MK1 pre-order beta. This is where the approach will slightly change from my previous videos in the series, as this is the first time I've ever covered a game yet to be released. So, what do we talk about? Well, I played an absolute ton of Li Mei during the beta period, and at this point I am very confident in discussing what potential she has for the future of the game, how her moves work, where the inspiration for them seemingly came from, and generally how she compares to her original playable versions. I can't exactly say that she is this or she is that mechanically, as until the game is out and until there's been some serious time to figure out where she lies in a tier list, nothing can be certain. And even then, who knows what's going to change down the line in balance patches or new content. For now, let's simply go over what we know. Li Mei is a stylish character who has seen a lot of interesting specials for mobility or combo potential. She is a character heavily dependent on the cameo assist system to really push forward something she might lack as a base, but with the right cameo can be a pretty serious contender in certain situations. Returning specials are an immediate one, as most of her moves are actually back and functioning perhaps a little bit differently to what you'd expect. Back Forward 4 is a charging knee attack that knocks them down, with the enhanced version being her armored reversal. But animation-wise, I think it's pretty similar to her flurry of punches from 3D. Flip Kick is an airborne-only attack in MK1, but again, animation-wise is very similar to what she had in the 3D games. This was the first special that I saw that really stood out, as animation is totally preserved from what it was before. She has her grounded flip kick here, but this one doesn't lead to combos. It's a fast reversal-like attack that can end combos or punish otherwise safer attacks against her. The enhanced version of this is incredibly fast, you see. She has a projectile here too, and it's actually a big part of her game plan in this one. It's fast, it can be done airborne, and if you enhance it, will launch for a combo. It is definitely her best projectile yet, as in 3D, it was just kind of there. A new move for Li Mei in this game is the Lantern, something that she can summon whenever she wants, and it denies airborne movement for the opponent. Touching it launches for a combo, and she can use this mid-combo to guarantee the launch into big damage. At a higher level, Li Mei can actually use more than one of these in a combo to get even more damage, or even scarier setup with the right cameo. Lantern is used in the neutral, in combos, in setups. You can do things like her overhead drop kick into a lantern in the corner to get way more damage. It really is the main special that she has, and I have to say, this footage is from beta, so how many lanterns she'll be able to use mid-combo when the game is out, I don't know. Is it going to be changed? Who knows? A big thing about Li Mei compared to older games is her variety. Her airborne-style combos using lanterns, air combat, ending it in flip kick or enhanced projectile. You really do get 3D MK vibes from her combos, and how fitting it is, seeing as she was one of the most regular appearing characters in those games. Her use of air combat is more than most because she has launching air specials, launch potential from more than one lantern, setting all of this up up if you have the right cameo to allow these combos to exist. She truly does feel like a 3D era character in a modern game because of how well she uses the mechanics that used to be Armageddon specific, like air combat. She definitely isn't a perfect fighter, however. Her weaknesses in MK1 seem to stem from a lack of serious range on her buttons. Kinda reminds me of Deadly Alliance, really. And the fact that she really does need a cameo to function at that level. In the beta, I found myself using a combination of Jax and Frost. Jax for the high damage corner combos and disgusting ground pound set play, and Frost if you needed more neutral tools or mid-screen combos. Ground freeze into Lantern into some kind of combo that ends in either 40% damage or a Frost Orb mix-up. It's a choice that you'd make depending on character, and that's pretty much what the cameo system is all about, so points there, I suppose. Li Mei in Mortal Kombat 1 is a promising character that we simply need more time to really understand. Once we have access to all the cameo fighters with all of their different assists, her real viability will be known. But for now, she was an extremely fun to play character, and after using her in all 3 of the PS2 era games, I have to say they've really managed to keep her feeling like Li Mei. She doesn't feel like this totally brand new character who shares the same name of an older character. We've experienced that in fighting games before. But whether it's down to the animations, the inspiration from those games, the returning moves, it's a great experience overall. And if you are a Li Mei fan, I do think you'll have fun playing her in this new installment. She was my favorite character to play in the beta, and I gotta say, I've never really been a Li Mei player, even as somebody with more 3D MK experience than most. But with her strings and specials, she's a brawler character with range potential, setup potential, and some pretty nice flashy animations. Even simple things down to her throw animation being very similar to her Deadly Alliance animations. There's just so much love for the character in there that it really impressed me. And that's it for the competitive history of Li Mei. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you for being patient with this series, as I've had to figure out how to approach it with a new game on the horizon. It's an exciting time for sure, but stay tuned for plenty more MK content to come. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.